So guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ojiako podcast, or Ojiako show, which one suits you. So, I guess we're into UFC 258, Usman versus Burns, Welterweight division. I know I'm going to be eating my words and apologising for this, and this is one of those occasions and one of those times that I think I can say rightfully so, that just shows me, myself personally, that I still have a lot to learn about this sport. A lot to learn about the sports of mixed martial arts and how it works. There's a lot to understand about the sport, to the extent of knowing a lot, and to the extent of at least knowing a great deal, so you know what you're talking about. Just a moment, just that. That's a bit better. So I get straight into it. So Usman versus Burns. Just looking at how Burns fought in the previous one, looking at how Usman fought in the previous fight. Find Usman was good with his takedowns, and it's good with his grappling, his wrestling, his ground game is really good. And the last fight I saw, I think it was with Tyron Woodley. Each time Usman was attacking Woodley, it wasn't long before Usman was issuing a takedown, and they're trying to get his opponent onto the floor, just trying to attack them with maybe one strike or two. But then before you know, he's already getting them on the floor, on the ground, and wrestling them and pinning them to the ground. He has a good ground game. Burns, on the other hand, his striking is fierce and really dangerous. And just looking at, I watched one of his past fights, and I mentioned this in my last podcast. And his fighting, his striking, his jabs, his punches, they look really, really deadly. And I said this again in my last podcast, and someone commented on this that it's not to say that the punches are precise, but I think the precise wasn't the word exactly, but when he hits or throws a strike, it's kind of a dead in the sense that it hits the target of where he's aiming for. So with those two things in mind, how Usman fights, Usman's best qualities and Burns' best qualities, I actually thought that Burns would have this in the bag, but that wasn't the case. When I woke up early this morning, I looked at the results. I looked at the results before looking at the actual fight itself. Really, anyone, if you don't want to spoil the picture, naturally, even me myself, I would have looked at the fight first, watched the footage first of the fight. But I was kind of surprised and taken aback. Well, I wasn't too surprised, but knowing that Usman's equally he's a champion in his division. So, excuse me. So, when I saw that he'd won, I wasn't too surprised. But I was surprised in the sense that he had won against Gilbert's strikes. His strikes are really, really deadly. And when I saw Burns fighting Tyron Woodley, I was kind of shocked at how the guy throws punches. You wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of his fist when he's doing what he does best in the octagon. So this is one of those occasions I'll be eating my words, and I still have a lot of homework to do on this sport, and a lot of homework to do on how these athletes perform their best qualities. And because each fighter is different. They've each got a way of how they perform when they're in the octagon, how they fight, how they beat their opponents, how they attack their opponents. So but watching the fight in round one, I could see that Burns, this is the one I was watching. I would have thought, and if I hadn't known the score, what the results were in the first place, I was watching the first round, and I thought, okay, yeah, this guy looks like he might just pull this fight off, because he was landing some serious strikes. He even got a head kick in, but as he did so, he fell back, but he lost his balance and fell down on the octagon floor, but was back up again in no time. And I noticed that in this fight, Usman was doing something a bit different to what what he's known for. He was doing more striking, much more than any groundwork. There was I don't think, apart from the fact that Burns was flawed, and that's how he lost the fight. He was knocked out. He wasn't knocked out, but the referee stopped the fight, and Usman won. I noticed that Usman wasn't doing any takedowns, any groundwork. There was any from his side. There wasn't too many takedowns or wrestling, anything like that. So I thought that maybe that's because he knew his opponent. I mean, these two guys are friends. They are fighting at the same, fighting out of the same team. Sanford, Jim, somewhere like that in somewhere in the US. I've forgotten the name where it is. They both have the same coach. Is it Henry Hooftner, something like that? They both have the same coach, so they know each other really well. They've trained with each other, they've trained with each other. They've sparred with each other, so they know each other's best suits, their best qualities, and each other's weaknesses, each other's strengths. So, they're not complete strangers to each other. They know each other really well. They're good friends and they're close. So I would have. That being said, and what I saw in the fight, I think kind of made sense that maybe Usman kind of changed his strategy and his game plan as to how he was going to go about this fight and how he was going to go about beating his opponent. So in the second round, it did seem like Usman was trying and testing to see if there was a perfect time he could land a good strike, and then finally he did so, and get my words mixed up here. In round 3, he landed that the winning strike, which sent his opponent to the floor, and he just finished him off with some with more strikes, and the referee steps in and stopped the fight. And so he won by TKO, and he retained his title, and he's still the undefeated champion in his in the welterweight division. So on to the next. But there's still something else that I'll come back to in this fight, probably towards the end of this episode. Now, I hate saying this because I'm almost repeating myself as I've done so in my other episodes, and my other podcasts. But I admit it's something I've avoided doing because I'm so tired of cash. Seeing these fights, to see them properly, I think I need to download the UFC Fight Pass or upgrade my Sky Digital plan to just include the Sky Sports and BT Sports channels to see these MMA mixed martial arts events properly in full, not what you see on YouTube with the highlights and full fights whereby the person is zoomed in and zoomed out and all sorts of nonsense, just so I can see the fights properly. So for the next fights on the main card, which was Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber, the women's flyweight division, Grasso won by unanimous decision, and I saw the fight. I can see why Grasso won. It was a really lively fight, lots of takedowns, wrestling, and striking. But it's just one of the reasons as to why I need to download the app or find another way to watch the fights in full, because watching in highlights that's just not good. It's pretty fucked up. And after that came Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinrich, the men's middleweight division. So there's one particular move in MMA which I'm not really sure, but halfway into the first round, Heinrich had Gastelum's arm in a lock. I'm not gonna try and speculate what the name is because I don't want to sound stupid while I'm recording this show. But it was some sort of lock, and as well they're wrestling and grappling on the floor. But the other guy, Kelvin Gastelum, did show some decent ground game and in both the first and second round. Each time he got Heinrich onto the ground, he managed to keep him there. And in the third round, Heinrich got a flying knee in, but Gastelum managed to check that and change the whole thing around and get his opponent into another takedown. But Heinrich managed to get on his opponent's back. And not to waffle on, Gastelum won by unanimous decision. God, I've really got to download the UFC Fight Pass and watch these fights in full, because doing it by the highlights, even I'm missing the whole event, and if I'm just watching by the highlights, then I'm not really appreciating the sport. I can see that myself. And after that, in the featherweight division, Ricky Simon versus Brian Keller. Yeah, Ricky Simon won by unanimous decision, and I could see why. But again, it's just another reason as to why I need to get the that Fight Pass app. Next up after that was Julian Marquez versus Maki Pitolo, middleweight division. Marquez won by submission. Although really, watching that fight, that was a highlight, but watching that fight, I would have thought just at the beginning of the footage, I would have thought that Pitolo would have won due to all the takedowns and clinches he was getting in, but no, Marquez actually managed to change things towards the end of the whole fight. Now, in the news, people have been reacting to Usman's win against Burns, and overall there's been lots of praise for him. People are actually astonished that this guy has won again and has maintained that title and has retained the belt, the champion belt. Many people even said he's a problem, and his performance, I can see why he's called the Nigerian Nightmare, because even someone like Gilbert Burns, even according to somebody like myself who is still very much a novice in this sport, even as a fan, and the fact that I thought that Gilbert Burns would have beaten Usman is testament to that facts that I still have a lot to learn, that I'm still a novice, but I love the sport. I can see why they call Usman the Nigerian Nightmare, because even Gilbert Burns, going back to what I was saying, I thought that Gilbert Burns, with his striking capability and how those punches just look deadly and dangerous, I thought he would have managed to basically walk through Usman, just knock him out and floor him, and just finish him off with some strikes, or just finish him off with a nasty KO, a nasty knockout, and that would have been it. But that wasn't the case. No, Usman was really smart in this fight. So yeah, a lot of people have just been coming up with praise and admiration, and well done and congratulations to Kamaru Usman. Now, there was a video that Conor McGregor released of himself practicing Muay Thai, and I'm not sure where the video was taken, whether it was somewhere in the US or maybe he's still in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East somewhere, or somewhere in the Mediterranean, but somewhere sunny and nice. But it showed him practicing Muay Thai against the pillar of just somewhere outside against the pillar. And I watched it for the first time. I think he released himself on his Instagram and on his own social media, and I thought, okay, that's great. But then suddenly other people reposting it with memes, in forms of memes. I think John Wayne Parr, the Australian Muay Thai fighter, he reposted it, and I think he commented somewhere on it, this is funny, well done, nice try. Yeah, some people are saying good try and leaving laughing emojis there. So at first I thought, okay, maybe this is something serious, or maybe it's a new skill he wants to take up. But I don't know. But many people have actually thought it was funny. Like, the whole thing just looked silly and hilarious. So I'm not sure where that is going, but let's wait and see what happens. Maybe it's a hobby or something of Conor McGregor's. I really don't know. But in other news surrounding him and Dustin Poirier, the trilogy fight is going to happen. Dana White has confirmed that it is going to happen. So sorry to Charles Oliveira, but I think Dustin Poirier is far more interested in fighting Conor McGregor. So regardless of what Joe Rogan said, it looks like Charles Oliveira is going to have to sit this one out. Moving on, this is kind of going back to UFC Vegas 18. So Frankie Edgar has spoken, I think in a recent interview or was a podcast, but he did make a statement in a video, basically whereby he's being interviewed about the loss he had against Cory Sandhagen, the Sandman, at UFC Vegas 18. After that crazy KO, just a flying knee, and the fight was over was over before it even started. You know, I think it was about 30 or 40 seconds into the first round, and it was just mad. And it's fun. I find it kind of crazy that how these fighters, when they're knocked out, whether it's by TKO or KO, when they're knocked out, they just fall flat on the canvas. Just they're barely moving. That whole thing. Then afterwards, they're just walking out from the octagon. They're just speaking normally. Like nothing happened. Of course, something happened, but just seeing it like that way, and just how it happens. It for me, as someone who's not a mixed martial arts athlete, but as a fan, you're seeing how it happens. It's just, it's crazy. Before that, the last one that I remember was when Jorge Masvidal knocked out Ben Askren at I've forgotten the UFC event it was now, but he knocked out Ben Askren in such a short period of time in the first round before the fight had even started. Was it by knee or by fist? But I think no, he managed to KO Ben Askren in such a short space of time. I think that was even in an even shorter space of time. No, not even. That was in an even shorter space of time. Maybe not even up to 10 or 15 seconds. But Ben Askren was just out cold. It was crazy. It was just mad. But no, back to this point, Frankie Edgar has spoken that basically what has happened to him, first of all, he understands that in this sport, these things can happen, and even in that interview, he said that if it didn't happen to me, it could have easily happened to Cory Sandhagen. So again, respect to him, credit to him. He's not crying or whining or being a little bitch about the whole thing, but it's a sport that these things can happen, and nobody likes to lose. Everybody wants to win. When you lose like this in a sport like this, it's really it's embarrassing. Since it's being watched by so many other people, even though there weren't so many people in the arena. Of course, the outside people watching on their devices, on their TV sets, wherever. A lot of people are still watching the fight, and he even said it. This is a very unforgiving sport. I know what happened will unfortunately stay with him forever. He's been rerunning the whole thing in his brain, just how the whole thing happened. Although he says himself that he has no actual pure recollection of how the whole thing happened, because he was knocked out. He remembers walking out of the arena, but how the flying knee from Cory Sandhagen, how it was executed and just thrown at him. He doesn't really remember that as such, because he was knocked out cold. But credit to him for taking it on the chin, on the chin, not complaining and bitching like a baby. It goes to show that he understands the sport he's in. He understands what he has signed up for. So I have a lot of respects to him as a fighter, and even more respect. He doesn't hold any grudges against Cory Sandhagen at all. Because when you get knocked out like that, when a fight ends like that so quickly before it's even started, it's embarrassing, especially when you're on the receiving end, and when you're the athlete, when you're the opponent who has lost, completely. So I can understand that. It's really embarrassing, and for him, in this sport and in any sport, especially in MMA, there's going to be these sort of compilations they do about the quickest knockouts, the quickest knockouts, the shortest times that a match has ever run for. And unfortunately, I've got a good feeling that UFC Vegas 18 of 2021 will be there for the co-main event. That's one of the quickest knockouts, the quickest TKOs probably in UFC history, in MMA history. Well, let's wait and see. We're still in February, so we're still in the first quarter of 2021. So let's see what the year brings. Of course, we still have COVID-19 that we're still dealing with. So let's see. But I can understand his frustration and his embarrassment. But I can also give the guy a lot of respect for the fact he's taking it on the chin, and he is not bitching and moaning about it. But enough about that. So Kamaru Usman, after his win against Gilbert Burns, he now wants to fight Jorge Masvidal, and I haven't been following much of before his win at UFC 258. I've not been following the beef he's been having between himself and Jorge Masvidal. I know he's got beef with Colby Covington, but hearing Jorge Masvidal, game bred fighter, I've not been following that too closely. I haven't been following that too closely. So both of them have a score to settle since their last fight, and in that fight, I think Usman did. Usman did fight Masvidal with a broken nose. Excuse me, guys. Now, in response to what Usman said during the post-fight press conference, Masvidal tweeted, "I took your nose in 6 days. 3 weeks I'll take the belt, and full camp I'll take your head." So I think this is something to do with I think both of them. There's the Ultimate Fighter, which is almost like a separate thing that the UFC do. This was like in the mid 2000s, 2004, 2005. They started it, whereby some of the top fighters in the UFC who are still fighting, but they've got like enough fighting experience, and they fought for long enough for them to like coach their own team of upcoming young fighters. So I think it was something like that they wanted to do. So what they wanted to do was to get Usman to be coaching a group of fighters, and then Masvidal would also be doing the same. But they know that there's going to be the two have a score to settle. So I think there was a worry that the two might actually fall out, have a serious falling out. So there was some concern on whether each person would actually agree to do the whole thing for the UFC. I'm not sure if this is what it was all about. But of course, he's made it clear that he wants to fight Jorge Masvidal next. And in other news, although this is going to be almost like repetition, it's something that I've spoken to Charlie about, and even Charlie himself hasn't really agreed that it's something that's black and white. But it's the Jon Jones situation. So recently, Jon Jones came out, and there was a tweet that he posted on Twitter, which I saw, and I didn't really understand what he meant by it, but he said, "Been seeing lots of different things in the media lately. I would absolutely love to fight for the UFC again. Really hope we can come up with a good financial agreement and give the fans a few more great fights." Now, when I saw that for the first time, I hadn't seen the news that was posted on YouTube on MMA News and MMA World. I hadn't seen that. So it's only when I saw that's when I actually realized, okay, this is what he must have been referring to. Because when I saw this tweet, I was thinking, well, hold on, don't you fight for don't you work for the UFC? You're one of their fighters. You're one of their best fighters anyway. Despite the issue with the PEDs saga that's in the past have been reoccurring. And it's not just PEDs, but of course there's the other issues that he's had outside the octagon, away from drugs. When he had an accident in 2015 whereby he collided with his car that he was driving, collided with another vehicle. The driver of that vehicle was a pregnant woman. She broke her arm. Jones actually ran away from his car. He ran away from the scene. The police were called. They arrived, and by the time they arrived, Jones had already absconded. He had already disappeared, and I think he did come back just to collect something from his car, some money or something like that, and he disappeared again. Basically, he said that he's going to be vacating the light heavyweight championship, or the light heavyweight title, and that's because he can't negotiate a better salary with the UFC. And it seems, of course, the way I think about it, he's one of their best fighters. He brings in a lot of money, probably not as much as Conor McGregor, but whenever he's going to fight, because he's fought so well, he brings in plenty of pay-per-views for the UFC. And I would have thought that basically, it goes back to that saying, which I used to refer to Conor McGregor: whatever the prince wants, the prince gets. If you're that good within an organization. So I was assuming that because he's one of those guys, that basically the UFC would give him anything he wants, probably to an extent. But in this case, that's not the case. It's not happening. So if he's stepping away from the UFC, then okay, fine. Now, some people may say, what the hell am I talking about? You're just an idiot that still doesn't know anything about the sport. But, excuse me, I would have thought that for someone like this who has always had an issue with drugs, with PEDs, with banned substances that you cannot use to perform or to compete within the sport, I would have thought that maybe, okay, this is good, because it's not fair that the UFC, when it comes to MMA, one of the biggest organizations in the world that promotes this sport, and I'm sure there are many fighters who would love to be in the UFC to, at least make a name for themselves in this sport, despite how notorious the UFC are for how they treat their fighters and how they pay their fighters. And I wouldn't say they're poorly paid, but they could be paid a lot more. For someone like this who has always had an issue with PEDs for some reason, and he's always come out saying it, but each time he was proven to be innocent. But there's no smoke without fire, and eventually people start to question that even whenever things like this do happen, are you really innocent? Are you really telling the truth? Why does it keep on happening? Something must be going on. So maybe some people may be happy to find let me leave the UFC, because it's not fair that someone like this is being promoted, and they've got this their past isn't clean. Basically, there's always been an issue in the past when it comes to these banned substances. He's tested. It's never been confirmed. I don't think, but if you look at all the things that's been happening, at one point, or sometime, was it 2013 or 14, or was it 2010? This was before USADA came to existence, but some people from the I think it's called the Athletic Commission were coming to a gym where he trains, and they're going to just conduct a random test for banned substances, and all his teammates, his coaches, and whatever, they're all hidden beneath the fighting cage of the gym where he was training. And I think eventually they were found out. They were all punished for that. When things like that do happen, people do query and question, what's going on. There's no smoke without fire. So if he does leave the UFC, I think many people might be happy that finding a good riddance, go, because it's not fair that all the other fighters are actually doing the hard work, and many of them some don't even get the recognition for all the hard work that they put into performing and being successful in this sport. Look at TJ Dillashaw. Now, many people are saying he should not be allowed to fight again, or let me get this right, he should not be given another chance at a title fight, given the fact that he tested positive for a banned substance not too long ago. So, it's things like that people are annoyed about. It's just not fair. Everybody else has done things the right way. They've not cheated or done something to get an unfair advantage over their opponent in the sport. So why should because if things like what's happened to TJ Dillashaw, if that continues, then it does set a precedent that if you've done something wrong, something which is really, really, really unfair, then you can still be given a second chance at competing in the sport, at being successful in the sport, whilst other people who have done things the right way, it's just not fair. I mean, I'm not sure I can put it into words without sounding stupid or repeating myself, but it's just really, really, really unfair. And in a sport such as MMA, whereby it's a combat sport, whereby you've got to try and hurt your opponent as much as possible, KO, TKO, submission, or by unanimous decision, if you take a banned substance that gives you an advantage by means of strength, or your senses are heightened and sharpened, so you land those punches really, really strongly or far more ferociously, you can hurt or even kill your opponent. You really, really can, because all these banned substances, steroids, are known for that, as well as giving you the advantage of doing better in whatever sports may be. There's also the downside as well that you've really got to take into consideration. So I'm going to stop waffling and bantering here. So guys, If you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. I think, as I said before at the beginning of this video, my predictions about the Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru Usman fight were completely and totally incorrect. It's a good example of. It's just a good example of the fact that I still have a lot to learn in this sport. A shitload more knowledge to gain about how this sport works. I still have a lot of homework to do. I still have a long way to go. But guys, again, if you did like my content, if you do like the video, please don't forget to leave a like. Please do subscribe. You can find me on Instagram. My name is Ojiako1 on Facebook. If anyone still uses Facebook, my name is Ojiako. I still use Facebook. And on Twitter, my name is Ojiako. And you can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Player FM, Stitcher, Listen Notes, Podchaser, and so many other platforms I'm trying to get the podcast out to. And Apple iTunes is still being a bitch. I'm still trying my best to get that thing done. It's the artwork that's causing the problem. That's the only error I'm guessing from their site, but it's something which I'm sure I can work my way around and just work out. I'm sure it's something so easy and so simple. But anyway, guys, thanks. And yeah, though by the time I post this, it might be too late, but there's no point in wishing it. The day's already gone. Anyway, guys, take care and thanks.